We're just waiting for Keith, and Keith responded to me earlier, so I'm assuming he's going to join in here.
Now, Jim, a question for you, since you're obviously more technologically advanced. How do you get a background in there?
You go to Zoom,
Yeah,
go down to Preferences,
yeah.
and then Virtual Background. Click on that,
Okay.
and then you can put there's a little plus arrow below your picture, and you can import any picture you want in there, and then just click on it, and there you go.
I thought it was in the Alps.
Excuse me. Did you see my text about the password?
I just went to the Zoom to see the options. And there's an option there that says touch up my appearance. I'm not sure what it'll do, but I didn't touch it.
Did you didn't see the text I sent them, huh?
Who's talking to who?
I think Paul's talking to somebody on his cell phone.
Check your text messages there, and I've got it in there. It's 021204, I believe. Okay. Oh, you're still there, Mark?
Oh, that must be Mark Reed calling in.
1204. Oh, 1204. All right. Sure thing.
So Cindy, we're all set for tomorrow night?
You bet. I'll be more set when tomorrow night gets here, but that's me.
I saw the long email today and we have all the connections and IDs.
Good.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Mark Reed, so Mark will be with us momentarily.
I was talking to some folks today in South Carolina that I know. They said absolutely everything is open. Hotels, restaurants, everything. Nobody's wearing masks down there. It's amazing, you know?
And scary.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of people, there's at least 2 families I know in the last week that have gone to Florida from this area. They were saying the same thing down there.
Oh,
Hi, Keith.
Okay.
I think we still have to be careful.
oh, absolutely, absolutely. We still had, I think it said in the news today, what, 65, 66 deaths yesterday?
Mm.
That's way too many.
That's sad.
It is.
Hi, Mark.
Hello.
Hi, Mark.
Keith, did you go to New Hampshire last weekend?
2 weeks ago, we were up there. Yeah.
Were they still practicing?
Depends what store you go to. You go to the supermarkets, yes. If you go to like a Home Depot, it's completely hit or miss. So they don't have the numbers like Massachusetts does. So in terms of cases, confirmed cases, and fatalities.
Yeah, I was in Maine last weekend and I found the same thing. Depending on counties, the counties that were the hardest hit had more stringent regulations, and the ones that didn't, it was like nothing was wrong.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see what all these riots and protesting, people close together, what that's going to turn out to be.
Well, we won't go there with this meeting.
Yeah, let's
It'll
not even touch that.
take weeks. Somebody got 705. Maybe my clock is slow here in the office. What do you got? 7:05 is what I've got.
7:05.
Yeah.
At this time, I'm going to start the Southampton Planning Board meeting via Zoom, and it's also on Easthampton Media for June 3, 2020. All our members are present at this time. So I will start tonight's agenda with the public hearing for a residential stormwater permit for James Labrie Jr. at 62 Gun Road. So at this time, I will ask James Labrie Sr.
Text me when you want me to come back.
to recuse himself, and I'll call you back in when we're through, Jim.
You got it.
Thank you. So Mark Reed from Heritage Surveys is here tonight to present the stormwater permit for Mr. Labrie Jr.
Yes, good evening. Excuse me. So as the application stands, Jim
Bradley, can you go downstairs, please?
Labrie Jr. would
Sorry about that.
is going to build a house located at 62 Gun Road, and the parcel itself has an area of 4.054 acres of land. The house is going to be set back from the roadway, and I can share the site plan or the sewage disposal plan with you to review
Please
it.
do.
And let me put that up now.
All right, when you put that up, Mark, I'm just going to make it official in the record that the notice to the abutters was mailed personally by me after you provided me with the abutter list and the postage paid envelopes. And it was also published in the Daily Hampshire Gazette, May 19th and 26th. And it read, in part, notices hereby given in accordance with provision of Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5, that the Planning Board will hold a public hearing on a residential stormwater permit application from James Labrie Jr. for 62 Gun Road, map 20, parcel 119, portion of disturbance of 54,000 square feet on Wednesday, June 30th, 2020 at 7 p.m. virtually at Zoom. This will also be televised via CATV. Information about the application is available by contacting Southampton Planning Board at gmail.com. Okay, go ahead, Mark.
So Paul, you have to enable me on your end to share. Yeah, it's telling me that I can't share. My drawings. You as the host have to disable participant screen sharing.
Well, I got rid of everybody now.
Hey, Paul,
Yeah.
go down to, so I think we see your screen now, right? Is that what we see? Or no? Is that yours? Forget it. I thought I saw what you had for your options. So in your bottom, do you see share screen?
If you have an iPad, it's up top.
Yes, it says the green thing says I am screen sharing.
So if you
Do I
pull
do
to the
it
right, you can request, or you can, I think you can give control to others or give host to others where it says that. So I think if you click on to the right where it says view options,
I've got a screen that tells me screen, whiteboard, iPhone, iPad. It says basic. It says select a window or application that you want to share. So it's the screen, correct?
It says that I think you got to enable host sharing or sharing.
Okay, I've got Keith requested a remote, so I had him approve.
Yeah. Let me see what we can do here. Where's... All right. And then what does this do? Schedule. Huh. Yeah, it doesn't give you a lot of options.
Yeah, because it's still saying on my end that it's the host disabled screen sharing.
Screen sharing. Yeah.
Right. I did, Paul.
I mean, the only thing we could do is Paul or Mark, whatever you wanted to present. Does Paul have it? Paul
Yes.
could pull it up on his screen, and then he could give you control.
Yes. I did email the plans to you, Paul.
Yep.
So you could call up the site plan or the one of the sewage disposal plan.
Like Paul, I gave you control back, but yeah, if you want to pull up the plans, and then Mark, you have to request control of Paul.
Okay. How do I do that?
Yeah, really. I got to go to the email, correct?
Yeah. So Paul, you would just open your email like you normally would.
I'm trying to figure out, the only one I'm seeing now is Keith. What the hell I did to knock everybody off? When I went to share the screen.
I think we're all here, Paul. You just can't see us because you're sharing the screen.
Yeah, it's voice activated, Paul, so the person talking the loudest usually comes through.
Hey, I was going to say, is it maybe in the participants and right click it if you see? I don't know.
Would have been on the 14th or 15th of May. There it is there, Paul. Oh, you just went by it, I think.
Okay, can you see that?
Yes, that's the application. Yeah, and then there was a second email with the plans. So there should be one further down, or that's just the application itself, and the plans was a separate email, not within this email, Paul.
No, it's not this one?
Yeah. So it's,
No, that's the public hearing notice.
yeah. definitely would have been Labrie, 62 Gun Road is the,
Mark, can you resend it to him?
yeah, I can.
Might be easier.
I'll to you again.
I think I've got it in my personal email. I thought, did you send it to the planning board or the,
I think I sent it to you both, but I'm not, if you have it in your personal one. I gotta log into my work email or my work computer. But I can do that. Maybe. Oh, that's yours. How do I get out of
all right, I just sent it over to this. It came to my email.
Okay.
All right, so,
That one there would, yep, that's the site plan itself.
yep.
Um,
Is there anything you want to comment on any of this?
There you go. Yeah, if you can enlarge that a little more, it's perfect. So as you can see, the plan itself, Gun Road, is on the right-hand side. There will be a driveway that crosses an open field area. Another cleared area in the back of the property where he would like to build his house. There is a stone tracking pad right off of Gun Road. There are fiber log barriers on the downward slope coming off of Gun Road and into the property to handle any stormwater runoff and potential erosion that might occur. And then there is also erosion control barrier loop around the downhill side of the house. If you zoom in on where the house is located, Paul.
Where is that now?
It's the the black area there in the back, the block on the left-hand side. There you go, a little more. So you can see that it starts at a sycamore tree and loops around to the rear of the property.
Whoops. Sorry.
It's all right. So there you go. So the erosion control barrier started an existing sycamore tree that's out in the open clearing around to the rear of the property of what will be Jim Jr.'s new house. The house is shown on the plan as well as the sewage disposal plan. So as Paul mentioned, the area of disturbance is 54,000 square feet, which includes the site grading. Approximately 1,672 feet would be impervious between the driveway and the house for the property in itself. Between the two fields, there's a wooded area as the buffer between the street and the proposed house itself. Sheet 2 has all the construction related details, satisfy Title V requirements, detail of the stone tracking pad. There's the fiber log insulation details and erosion control notes on it. Oh, you had there you go. That's the one, Paul. So that's sheet 2 as part of the application for the project in itself. The
Uh,
time frame for building is as soon as we get approval, they would like to start construction and hopefully be in by fall. I don't know if people have driven by the area, but the topography slopes up from Gun Road to the property to the tree line, and then it levels off a little bit, and then it there's a bit of a downward slope, and then back up to where the septic system's going.
Anyone-
Stormwater
go ahead, Mark.
from where the house is being built goes in a westerly direction to other land that's owned by Jim Jr.
Any questions from anyone on the board or comments regarding that? Keith, Paul?
I have a question. It looks like all the abutters are actually either Jim Jr. himself or Kathleen Labrie.
Yes, direct abutters.
Okay, because, I'm a little concerned there was, the password issue tonight to get onto the Zoom meeting. Is there anybody that you can think of that would have wanted to be present at this hearing to say anything that are not present?
I don't believe so.
Okay,
As a matter of fact, when we got the certified list of abutters from the assessor's office, your regulation states that all abutters within 100 feet of the property would be notified. The list we got is 300 feet from all the abutters.
okay,
Paul
good.
Sent out notices to all abutters within 300 feet of this property. The property that was noticed out includes the 24-acre piece to the west. So a great deal of people were notified. I haven't heard from any one of the abutters.
Okay,
And no one petitioned me by email or phone to view the plans that the legal notice had alluded to.
I'm okay with that.
Keith or Paul?
No questions.
Yeah, I don't have anything. I mean, this is, pretty straightforward. It's, standard building permit plus an additional 10,000 square feet of disturbance. So I think I don't have any questions. This is pretty straightforward to me at this point.
If there's no other questions or comments, I will then ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
A motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Motion is made and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And now, again, if there is no other further discussion, I will ask for a motion to approve this residential stormwater permit for James Labrie Jr. at 62 Gun Road.
I'll motion to endorse and approve the said stormwater permit.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Palmer, aye.
So is that everyone? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you all.
Now I don't know how to get back where I'm going.
Good night.
Can you guys still hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Do you go back to share screen and stop sharing it?
Hey, Cindy.
There you go.
Good. All right, thank you. Next, and I emailed you this information yesterday. We still have it. There was a couple of
Paul?
building, yeah.
Paul, did you notify Jim to come back?
He's probably watching TV. Okay, thanks, Cindy. Have a little nap.
You woke me up.
All right, next, I've got a couple of building permits that have come in between now and the last meeting. I sent the information to you. With the exception of maybe one, and I can't even remember if I sent you that, but the other one, the first one I approved personally because it only had 28,000 area of disturbance, was for Alan and Yolanda Madsen of 15 Center Street. So that I signed off on May 29th because it was pretty straightforward and it was well under our threshold for disturbance. So I'm just going to ask you to formally approve that, even though I signed off on it, to make it official in this meeting minutes.
Yeah, motion to endorse the permit.
We'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The next one you have on your, I hope you kept or printed out. I had Keith look at it. It's from Jeffrey Florick, 101 Fulmer Road. And it was a pretty rough set of plans. It was okay, but it's not typically what we would probably want. And I showed it to Keith to see if he could get or verify the disturbance, because the applicant had written on it 38,210 feet. So Keith, would you want to comment on that?
Yeah, so the lot itself is, the lot size is 67,425 square feet. The plot plan they gave us, which showed the approximate location of a 5-bedroom house, showed a 1,500 gallon septic tank and a leach field, driveway, and it was kind of a hand-drawn plan. That plan did not include any limits of work, erosion control locations, or grading limits, which would normally be used to determine the overall area of disturbance. So absent that information, all we have is the applicant's word that the total disturbance is calculated at 38,210 square feet. So I think, Paul, I had emailed you in the past that what we had done is just marked up the building permit that, disturbance shall not exceed 40,000 square feet or otherwise be subject to the stormwater regulations bylaw. Short of asking for additional information, I don't know what action we could take on this other than endorsing the permit with that language.
I think, if I may, go ahead, Paul, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Paul.
I think in the past when we had these lack of a better term, incomplete submittals. We've asked for them to submit more information, particularly when it approached 40,000 square feet of disturbance. And given that it's just someone's word and, there's nothing written or documented, I feel like continuing with that theme as we've asked for in the past, I think is what we've done in the past, and probably should consider doing that as well.
The other thing is, I think this lot on Former Road is one that abuts what used to be called Alder Pond. I don't know if you are aware of it, but Alder Pond is kind of just a little stream right now. I think that it's really important that we make sure we have the right stormwater plan if, in fact, it is greater than 40,000. So I'm in agreement with what Paul Fergal just said, that we, ask for something a little better plan, other than this handwritten mock-up. I'm looking at it myself. So this is the permit for the stormwater. This isn't an A&R, correct? There's a difference here?
This is just a building permit, so the applicant is stating the disturbance is less than 40,000,
Right.
in effect avoiding the need for a stormwater permit.
Oh, okay.
I agree with both Cindy and Paul Fergal's sentiments here. I would be of the opinion we kick this back to the applicant and ask them to submit a scaled plan with limits of work, limits of grading, so that we can at least measure it. And then that way, if in the field, the disturbance appears to have been exceeded, at least we have a plan that the proposed limits were supposed to be, so that a comparison could be made to what is actually happening in the field. So I would be of the opinion we kick this back and ask for better details.
Jim, any comment?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Keith, Paul, and Cindy, especially in the area it's in, close to that Alder Pond and very close to the 40,000. I think it'd be nice to have something a little more definitive.
Yeah, the thing that troubled me about it, no officially surveyed plan that was stamped that we regularly get that shows with the verification of the engineer or the land surveyor of what the disturbance is. This was handwritten in off of, it looks like a septic drawing. Is that correct? So,
Yeah, possibly.
yeah, there is a stamp on that, but again, it says proposed subsurface for the sewage disposal area. It's not a complete survey. It was just done, that type of drawing for the septic system, basically.
Yeah, and the stamp is by an individual that's a registered sanitarian. Not a PE, not a professional land survey or anything like that. So.
All right, well then, can I ask for a motion then to table this, and I'll ask the applicant for additional information so we can process this form?
I move that we table this and ask for additional information of the applicant, but the specific question that I need to ask is, do we want it to be a survey by a specifically certified person, like an engineer or something? What's the language that's the right way to say it?
Isn't the language, Keith, just has to be stamped by an engineer, or is it a surveyor? But isn't it an engineer that we're looking for?
I would think a professional land surveyor or an engineer would suffice.
Or a landscape architect.
It's interesting. I don't know the answer to this, but it's interesting that, I don't know. Let's say this truly is a disturbance less than 40,000 square feet. I don't know what type of plan would normally be required to accompany a Massachusetts building permit. What type of plan would our building commissioner anticipate to see? So, to some degree, I guess we need to be a little careful about requiring applicants to submit plans with a professional engineer stamp or a professional land surveyor stamp, due to just the cost to obtain that plan. So, but where this one's close, I think we ask for it.
Well, I think just going back to the previous applications that we've reviewed, as I recall, we asked them for a definitive or a defined plan that identifies limits of disturbance. And I do believe that we had some applicants that came in that didn't have that stamped, as I might remember. But then I think most of them did have something prepared by a consulting firm that identified actual limits.
Yeah, most of the larger ones, as I recall, all, had professional stamps on them. Some of the smaller ones may have been a little rough, but anything that was any size was pretty well detailed. So Cindy's made the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
So Cindy's motion to table, and we ask for a plan to scale with a stamp landscape architect or surveyor showing the areas of disturbance. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The next one is an agenda item that was not on your, the original one when I posted. A couple of things came in late. This is from Ed Gibson, the town administrator, asking that High Street, that the planning board endorse and send along to the select board our endorsement of having High Street designated as a scenic road. And Ed says in his letter, the research that he's done, the town does not need to have a bylaw for scenic roads to be able to move forward with the request. It also appears that there are a number of designated scenic roads already in the town of Southampton. So the request would be for the planning board to consider the request and go through the process and then vote to consider to recommend High Street as a scenic road. Recommendation back to the select board.
Is this something that requires town meeting approval?
Janet, are you familiar with that?
I don't think it does, and I don't know how the other 11 roads got to be scenic roads without a bylaw already on the books.
I'm going to text Ed Gibson right now, Paul.
I was just curious.
It's already gone before
I
this.
think it is a scenic road. I think it'd be a great addition to that list. But I was just curious the process more than anything.
It's the best street in Southampton.
Yeah, currently there's 11 in town: Middle Road, White Loaf, Manhan, Maple Street, Fontaine, East Street, Rattle Hill, Russellville Road, Cold Spring, Gun Road, and Mountain Road.
How did they get approved without a bylaw?
It was before my time.
Me too.
Yeah, I'm reading. I was curious, so I pulled up Massachusetts general laws. Scenic roads fall under section 15C. I'll just kind of paraphrase from here. Upon recommendation or request of the Planning Board, Conservation Commission, or Historical Commission, such city or town may designate any road in said city or town other than a numbered road or state highway as a scenic roadway. After the road has been designated as a scenic road, Any repair, maintenance, reconstruction, or paving work done with respect thereto shall not involve or include the cutting or removal of trees or the tearing down or destruction of stone walls or portions thereof, except with the prior written consent of the planning board. So I've been involved in projects like this where if it is a scenic road, you have to have a public shade tree hearing in order to have certain trees removed. I think that's fine. Any city or town making said scenic road designation may make an ordinance or bylaw establishing that a violation of this paragraph shall be punished by a fine not to exceed $300. So to me, it says that we have the option to create a bylaw which would help enforce the scenic road designation and establish a fine structure if somebody violated and removed a tree or tore down a stone wall. The last sentence here in section 15C is designation of a road as a scenic road shall not affect the eligibility of a city or town to receive construction or reconstruction aid for such road pursuant to the provisions of Chapter 90. So in essence, the designation protects existing trees and or stone walls, and it doesn't ultimately preserve them in perpetuity, but it would require a public hearing process in order to allow the removal of trees or removal of stone walls.
Thank you, Keith. Any other questions from board members on that?
Yeah, I noticed what Keith just read was forwarded to us in an email in April, the Mass General Law 40, Section 15C. Who is the enforcer on that? I mean, does the highway department have a list of all these scenic roads so that they know, or if they have to bring in the utility company or something to?
I'm sure there's a utility exemption somewhere in there.
I checked with Randall, and he said they do nothing different on a scenic road than any other road in Southampton. They maintain it, they snowplow it, they do everything, and there's no difference as far as the highway department is concerned for a scenic road.
But I think Cindy's question was, how does someone know that any of the criteria is violated?
Right. And it's
someone would have to be, cognizant of it, a neighbor, and report it to the select board probably, or the highway department, or whatever. But
at minimum, we should have this in a document that's published on our town website, just at minimum, so that if it's public record to know what these streets are and what the guidelines are and what the recourse is if somebody takes down a tree on one of these scenic roads or moves a stone wall or does something.
Any comment, John?
Yeah, a question and a comment. I text Ed, and he says once the planning board does all their steps, he says, and he believes you have to have a public hearing on it, then you'd recommend it to go to a town meeting for approval.
Oh, boy.
So if that's accurate, there's a couple more steps in there. And my other question is, do we have signs already on the scenic roads that specify their scenic roads?
No.
So that's something we should do along the way too.
Right.
I think, but that's not planning.
That's highway department there.
Right.
And
Right.
could we put this on the select board agenda to, proceed with these steps? Because I know this has come up in the master plan implementation, the concept of do we have signs and where are these and are we publicizing them, and have we designated all the roads that we like as scenic roads? Are there some we've missed? How did these get designated?
Ed also said he's going to do some research on when the other roads were approved as scenic roads. Maybe there wasn't a process or nobody knew about it at the time. But if you have to approve it, then have a public meeting, I guess that probably needs a little research.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're going to have to look into that. But at this point, I'll ask for a recommendation of the board to look into it. And if it needs a public hearing, then so be it. But for right now, as an informal process, I will ask that this board either approve the process going forward or reject it.
I move to approve the process going forward of identifying scenic roads, and specifically the road Janet's brought up. What is the road?
High Street.
High Street.
High Street, thank you. And specifically, I move that the planning board agree that High Street could be a scenic road.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
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 All right.
Thank you. I'm going to leave the meeting.
Thanks, Jack. Good
Aye,
night.
Janet.
All right, thank you.
Ed Gibson also asked me to, along with Cindy's going to give a report on the Master Plan Implementation Committee, but Ed also asked that your term, Cindy, is coming up very soon. It's expiring, so do you wish to continue on the Open Space Review Ad Hoc Committee?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Thank you.
So do I have a motion that we appoint Cindy, our representative, to the Open Space Review Committee? I'll make that motion.
I actually made a motion, but my mute was on, so my dogs were barking. But okay, I'll second it if you want to make the motion.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I sent to you people, I believe this afternoon, late, but I think you remember about a year or so ago, Larry Smith developed a zoning application form for the building inspector's office. So when someone comes in, they can fill it out in its entirety, where it's got all the information, what permit they're looking for, whether it be a special permit, stormwater, variance, and it can be used multi-purpose form for the select board, the planning board, the zoning board of appeals. And John left the meeting, but I had sent this to Ed some time ago when Larry suggested it, and nothing ever came to it. But in lieu of the building inspector leaving us, he's with us part-time until another one is hired. I think it's a good time to put this in practice, because I have fielded more than my fair share of emails and phone calls about projects, building information, etc. And Larry cautioned us about that because he said, you know, you give somebody the wrong information or they interpret it differently, then I could be on the hook for whatever. So given that, I passed this along, I CC'd Ed on it and the select board to draft this application. It could be edited with some other information if some other departments want it on there, but it would be a standard form that we'd have going forward, and it might prevent some of these calls and emails. And I would certainly hope that the next building inspector too would familiarize himself with the zoning regulations, so he could make these determinations, so they're not just passing the buck off and say, well, call the planning department, the planning board. It's a planning board. It's not a department. We don't have hired staff.
Oh, I think it's a good idea. But I do have a general question in terms of the amount of dependency that is on you for answering these questions and responding to emails and whatnot, communication. Is there an opportunity for us to have somebody at PVPC kind of act as a quarterback to answer these questions if it's a simple, process that they can look in our bylaws and say, well, it's right there, rather than giving it on you. I mean, this is I think a perfect opportunity for someone at PVPC to take on that type of role and just use them as the contact for town information that you could be CC'd on, and then rather than you having to go through the process, it's done by someone that the town actually pays to do, rather than your personal time being used up.
I'm not adverse to that. It's going to come at a cost for their consulting. I don't know. It probably, given what the town's finances are, it's probably going to come out of our pockets with the planning board. So,
Well, what if we offered that service, but there was a fee involved? So the applicant, if they don't want to hire their own engineer or architect, whatever, to figure out what they can do and what they can't do, and they want us to go to the Pioneer Valley Planning, there should be a fee involved. Why should the planning board have to pay for that?
good point.
Right. And that's typically what's done anywhere in the state. Usually the response out of a planning department or a planning director or town planner is hire a consultant. We're not going to look in our book and say, oh, well, this use is permitted. That's something that they should be able to figure out themselves.
I find there's more with this zoning, general zoning application. That's more for probably bigger projects, but I find more of a bother more than anything is just general building information. Like I want to build a detached garage. I want to add a section to my house, but it's not going to be an apartment. I'm saying to myself, why did I get this call?
I think that's the wrong role for the planning board. I think they should hire their professional and come forward and request formally to the board, and then we act on it. And at that point, we could tell them if their setback's not quite right, we could adjust that or whatever. But I think advising people, I think that'd be a full-time position.
Just recently, there's a commercial business that wants to open up in town or construct. I'm not sure if it's new or it's an existing building, but he had a question about parking regulations because they're archaic and they're outdated. And it doesn't fall upon the planning board right now, given our bylaws the way they're written, that we undertake that. The special permit goes to the zoning board of appeals. So I had to refer him back to the ZBA on that. So it's just stuff like that I'm getting calls for, that if the building department had someone there, they could direct them to these departments for the information.
I'm agreeing with Paul and with Jim that this should not fall on the chairperson of the planning board. You've been generous and you have background in history and all that, but you may not always be the chairperson of the planning board, or maybe you'll be ad infinitum, I hope. But in the meantime, I like the idea of, if somebody hasn't hired their own engineer or their own person to interpret the bylaws, and they're just thinking they'll make a phone call, then we need to advise them that we will use our planning consultant, which is Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. It might be Ken Comia right now, or Larry, or whomever you choose, and there'll be a fee involved, and there should be like a standard statement that you can say. So I'm in favor of that.
So John, I hope you've been listening. I have, I learned a long time ago that it's when someone starts the building permit process and wants to get construction underway, they want it kind of as seamless as they can and try to streamline it. And if by not, I feel bad not giving people some direction, but on the same token, I don't want to be misquoted or whatever, and then it can turn back against us. So it's important that the next building department director be versed on this, and he be the one to be giving the direction going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're working on hiring either independently with Westhampton or going in with Easthampton, Westhampton, and ourselves. We've got those two avenues going now. So hopefully soon we'll have a determination.
What's that? I'm sorry, say that again, John. What's the town looking to hire?
A building commissioner, if we go with Westhampton, but we're also talking to Easthampton and Westhampton to maybe have 3 towns, although, Easthampton's a city. I say 3 towns and share services across the 3. We're exploring that too, because every time a job turns over, we get a lot of interest in trying to look at shared services to save some funding. So we're looking at that too. I've had a couple of meetings with Easthampton and Westhampton to discuss how we would share a building inspector or a building commissioner. And I think the next couple of meetings, there'll be some proposals, if you will, put together so we can bring them before the select board.
That's great.
Okay, so just as a, can I have I'll just do this informally, but I'll ask the select board, because I sent it again. I copied select board and Ed on it, and just to make it official in these minutes, that we go forward with this application, so the applications coming in are a little more complete and they know what they're looking for. We have a motion?
I have a comment before the motion.
Go ahead.
Excuse me for interrupting. What you also said was this would be a draft and then perhaps be circulated with other offices. Maybe assessors want to have something, Board of Health wants to have something, et cetera. So I think if we're going to move, are you talking about the general application right now? Is that what you're talking about?
Right now, it would pertain to zoning, select board, and the planning board.
Oh, that's all. Okay.
Yeah. Do I have a motion?
Anybody? No? So
Yeah,
moved. I'll make the motion.
Yeah, I think it's a good start. We can modify this anytime going forward, so I'll second that.
Motion from Keith and seconded by Jim. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, next we
Aye.
have
I was on mute.
Oh, were you trying to make a motion all that time?
No,
Oh, you were on mute?
I was on mute.
At this time, I have a couple of brief reports from Cindy Palmer. One is, first one's on PVPC, the stormwater bylaw draft report that the state wants updated.
Yep. Okay. So those meetings have continued. And right now, the budget for PVPC to continue to do the stormwater review for both the bylaw and for the regulations is exhausting for this month of June. So we're looking to see a finalization of that, according to Patty Gambarini. It's essentially to comply with the MS4 requirements. And I have said before, and I feel very strongly that you all recognize that I don't have the expertise to really be contributing as a planning board person should be. Thank you very much to Paul Fergali. He's been to a couple meetings. So I am proposing, and I believe that Patty will approach Paul Demon to get on our next agenda for the second meeting of this month in order to present the entire draft of the altered bylaw as well as the regulations. The key thing here is that the proposal is to take it out of zoning bylaw and put it in general bylaws. And there's many other aspects to it as well. I wonder how people feel about getting a second opinion or a peer review of this. We use peer reviews a lot because I'm just concerned that it would be helpful to the entire board, especially to the engineers on this board, to have just know that it's been looked at sort of with a fine-tooth comb, and I'm talking about the draft, before we have a chance to really review it. And I repeat again, it's because of my shortcomings that I think that would be really helpful. So I'm interested in hearing how everybody feels about that in order to us to be more informed when it's presented to the entire planning board.
I'm not in favor of any paid consultant to look at that. If this is what the state wants and they've drawn it up and that's what they want, with the exception of when we review some of the parts that pertain to the cities or towns' obligations in this, if the regs are the regs, why? We're not going to change them. That's what they want. That's what they want. All we have to do, I think, is edit our local information when it comes to permitting, enforcement, and some other issues. But I'm as in the dark about all this as you are, Cindy. And if we had an excess of funds to go around, I'd probably have somebody come in a heartbeat. But I don't think it warrants it, spending the money on it.
Yeah, and to add to Paul's point, there is flexibility in the regulations for the planning board to review particular applications or applicants or projects or whatever's coming through, to waive or to review the applicability of certain requirements. So I think with that in mind, I mean, if there's something that might sound a bit stringent or not in line with what we would expect, I think we have a shot at that at a later date to review and act accordingly.
Jim or Keith, any comment?
Oh, yeah, I think let's let it come forward, and we'll take a look at it as a board and see if we have any questions, and I suppose we can try to get them addressed at that time.
Okay,
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'd follow that sentiment.
I've made my pitch.
Yeah.
Okay. I just know it's been a tedious, well, I don't know, 6 or 7 meetings that I've gone to, and it's, Conservation Commission has been represented by Art, and Randall's been there, Ed's been there, and Patty Gambarini. So it seems kind of okay. We'll go with whatever you guys think is the best thing here.
I'm sure we're going to see it soon then if she's going to present it and
Yeah,
we can move forward.
we have one more meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. Anybody want to join in? I'll make sure you get the Zoom invitation.
Now that's about 40 pages long, correct?
It's pretty long, yeah.
Okay. Would you ask Patty on my behalf, I don't know if anybody agrees with me, but when she brings this to our board, to simply highlight the responsibilities of the planning board in this and forget about all the other paragraphs about the technical data and whatever else, because it's Greek to me. It probably is something that Keith and Paul understand, and Jim to some degree. But if that's the regs the state want and the applicants have to follow it, fine. But I want to know what our responsibilities are highlighted, so we can have like an abridged version of this going forward, because on 40, 50 pages, we could be spending hours on this. And to me, it's already been beat to death enough over the past several weeks with you guys.
It's fine. I could certainly ask for that. And I know that the draft I sent you before was, multicolored. It looked like a neon sign because it had so many different types of colors on it. And it was complex, and I will definitely do that. And we'll just, what else should I ask her at tomorrow's meeting? Anybody else want to throw in something?
Well, I was just wondering if, whenever she comes to meet with the planning board, if we can have substantial time to review it prior, so if we have any questions, the final draft, that would be great. If we can get
Okay,
the-
so I'll ask for, is a full week sound right, Jim, or more?
A week would be, yeah, a week, at least a week, that would be great.
Yeah, that should be the minimum.
Yeah, at a minimum. And just way we can try to go through it. If we have questions when she's there, then we can, get into discussion with her.
Okay, that'll be great. Anything else to remember? Now, I understand that the idea of putting stormwater into the general bylaws versus the zoning bylaws came up once before. And actually, the town of Southampton requested a legal opinion on that. And the recommendation was to put it in the general bylaws, but there was some kind of grandfathering concept there. I don't know. Paul, were you around when all that happened? I think it was in 2004.
Oh, that was before my time.
Okay,
Not that old.
okay.
Well, actually,
So,
I think Mark Gerard, the former chairman before John Furman, was the one that brought the stormwater bylaw to the forefront to begin with. So it was during his tenure.
Okay, so I don't even know Mark Gerard. I don't think. Okay, well, so that's one of the key points, is to change it and to put it into general bylaws. Okay, very good. Then I will present all that tomorrow at the 10 a.m. meeting. And it's a fair assumption that none of you are going to be able to attend that. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
right. That's why you were thrust into it, unfortunately. Thank you for being patient with that.
Okay, well, let's hope it's the right thing. And then do you want me to proceed with the next item?
Yes, your report for the master plan.
This can be pretty quick too. So the Master Plan Implementation Committee has been meeting for a couple of years now. And we took to heart the fact that Select Board really wanted to be sure that we engage the community again and make sure we understand how the residents of the town of Southampton feel right now. So the process sort of took a little bit of a 90-degree turn. And rather than just moving forward to start implementing things or getting guidelines, and I will remind you that we have the assistance of a PVPC person, that's Ken Comia from PVPC, under a DLTA grant that's supported by the planning board. We are in an active process right now of sort of revising and rewriting the regional survey that was done to create the current master plan. We're trying to pare it down. We're trying to look at the important points to make sure we're not, there's some redundancy in the previous one. I don't know if any of you remember it or participated in 2012. We're doing a really good job on it, in my opinion. I did not bring a draft. I welcome the opportunity for any of you to look at it. We're meeting next Monday night again. And so if you feel like we could just move forward as a committee, then we'll do that. If anyone here wants to see a draft of that survey, I will certainly provide it to you, and you certainly could attend that meeting next Monday night if you'd like, of the
Yeah.
Master Plan Implementation Committee. So that's pretty much it. Now, I just want to make the point, this whole COVID-19 change in behaviors has really thrown a wrench into how we're doing our job. The original idea was to have meetings and invite people to engage them in maybe in multiple locations in town. Well, that's not going to happen. So we're essentially going to be doing this as a written survey or an online survey. And, SurveyMonkey will be utilized and all that. So that's kind of where I am on this whole thing right now. We hope to have this whole thing launched by July and finalized by the end of August.
Thanks, Cindy. Could you send us copies of that survey?
The draft, it's not final. You want to see the draft?
Sure.
Okay,
If you have it, yeah.
it'll be after Monday night. So if you have any comments, you can get them back to me. Because Monday night we'll be sort of massaging it once again.
Yep.
Okay?
Great, thank you. Finally, on the items that I have 2 invoices from VHB, and they have to do with, one of them is for Gill Farm Estates inspection that John Furman has been doing. And so far, he's incurred $1,207.50 that the applicant has to pay. And on Fitch Farm, he has incurred $900 worth of inspection services so far. And if you'll remember, his quote going forward throughout the completion of those projects was $5,000. So these are partial invoices for different stages that it's gone along. So VHB $1,207.50 and $900, which would be $2,107.50. Do I have a motion to approve?
A motion to approve.
Second.
Yes. Second.
No, third.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. All right, thank you. That's all I have. Anybody else have anything they need to add?
I don't.
Hope everybody's well. Have a
So-
good time in Switzerland, Jim Labrie.
Yeah. Okay, I will.
Bring
So,
me back some chocolate, Jim.
Okay, I'm gonna watch. Anybody want to watch?
Yeah,
Got a Rolex?
the chocolate watch. Yeah.
our next meeting will be the 17th, unless something else comes up.
Oh, that's my birthday. I can't make it.
Is that right?
No. No, it is my birthday, but I probably will be here.
Yeah, you're not gonna be able to go out anywhere, so you're not gonna have an excuse.
I might have to drive to like Florida or somewhere.
Really? Otherwise, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I moved to adjourn.
Second.
Third.
All
Fourth.
right, thank you. Good night and stay well, everybody.
Everybody.
Likewise.
Good night, John.
Good night.
Good night.
Goodbye.